Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Identity Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Caleb, and I'm so grateful as always to welcome you here for this weekly show every Wednesday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, let me go ahead and bring on my fellow and lovely co-host, Tarik. It is always a joy to have you on. It's one of those days, it's just like
it's refreshing. It's March, we're gonna march right on. Happy Women's Month, Women's History Month at that.
Yeah, we're gonna march right on. I like that.
We're gonna march right on.
Yes, welcome to March. We're so excited. It is March 10th to be exact here for our episode, and we are so excited to get into everything for our episode today. And again, continuing March, we are focusing and featuring on many of our guests identifying as women because it is International Women's Month. And so we want to celebrate that here on the Identity Podcast. So we're very excited to continue our environmental and sustainability series even throughout March and even into April as well. But let's go ahead and welcome our guest, our very special guest for this week's show, Sustainable Change featuring Alina Bassi. Hello, Alina. How are you?
Yes. Everything's digital now, so we have to give you your applause right here. Give you flowers right here. Yes.
We need
how you doing?
Like a button.
We'll get a button. We'll get a button.
They have apps. Maybe I can download an
app. Yeah. Well, how you doing today?
I'm good. It's been a busy few weeks, but loads of really exciting stuff coming up. So, feeling positive.
Awesome. Yes, that's super awesome. So obviously there's a huge time difference, everyone. So we're all here. So I'm so glad she was able to kind of jump on with us and we were able to provide you with this on Wednesday. So I guess we can get started, Caleb, right? Like where do you think your journey has begun? Where is the seed, since we are doing environmental stuff? Where has your seed been planted? What were the first impartations that led you to where you are now?
Kind of a long time ago. So I think I remember first learning about sustainability probably when I was 13 or 14, and remembering that it really stressed me out as a kid that none of us are dealing with this problem that is climate change, and we're all gonna be flooded. I can't even swim, so I have no hope whatsoever. So what are we gonna do? And it clearly must have concerned me quite a bit within those early teenage years, because I then had to I had a film competition that you can do when you're 14, and everyone was making a film on, I don't know, getting their friends to act and stuff. And I decided, no, I'm going to make myself as a bit of a documentary, and we're going to talk about climate change and what it is and what's happening. And it was a very serious take on something at that young age. And that definitely is a path that has really stuck with me. It's the reason I studied my degree. And so sustainability and the seed has come from a very young age.
Yeah, I guess I'll dive a little deeper into that. So it's we've had some people on the show that have had these I don't know, epic stories, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole you into that, but I'm curious, was there some sort of narrative or something that you saw? Did you see something that just didn't fit, or were you very much more a global conscious? Because I honestly kind of connect with you with this one, Alina, because a lot of our guests have had these phenomenal stories. Like one of our guests was at the first Earth Day ever, and that was really awesome. But for me, like I said, it's been like a group consciousness thing. Whether it be recycling or just being from an inner city. That's a quite tricky word right there. But just living in New York City, you see some of the most disgusting, wasteful things all over. So I'm curious, where are you originally from too? We can actually shout that out as well.
Yeah, originally from just outside London. So maybe in a way, being from a city was also probably the reason why I sort of felt the same way too.
Right.
I wouldn't say that there was kind of a defining moment. It was definitely just learning about what was happening. Mm-hmm. And then actually when I was doing that film, I tried to create some footage. And so back in the day, you take your massive camera and you go out and you try and look for something that you think is pollution. So my dad took me to Heathrow Airport to film the planes. I went to a few local power stations. And so that was in a way seeing it firsthand. But yeah, I think there was no real defining moment at that age. One came later for textile waste, but we can get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get into that for sure. And obviously, you're like I can't wait to get into that because no one else has been able to touch that topic, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that. So I guess at this point you're going to uni. I guess that's where we've skipped to. You're going straight to college. It's like straight from sustainability straight to college. The pipeline is strong.
Yeah, it was that easy.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Also, I guess we can kind of tackle where you are now and what excited you to start traveling. And I guess we could make this an entire environmental episode, but again, this is March, so we want to just hear you and what you've talked about. So we're going to get into the textile topic for sure, but anything about your family or what your background comes from and how that shaped you as culturally would be awesome to talk about.
Yeah, I think I have a bit of a confusing background for a lot of people. I grew up in a household that's, my parents originally from a very small part of northern India called Punjab, but they're born and raised in Tanzania. And then they moved to the UK. I'm born in London, and now I live in Berlin. So it's a very international upbringing. I've taken from all the different cultures that I've been a part of. And I essentially, it's very common in our culture, I think, to kind of push education as being the way you get out of dealing with, being a first generation migrant, but from a first generation migration family. So education was definitely something that was kind of encouraged. I then decided, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to study something that I think is interesting. So sustainability being the goal, I thought, okay, if I do chemical engineering, I could probably work in solar power or wind power, and that's definitely good for the environment. So
indeed.
And thinking about it now, I probably should have done more research into what I was getting myself into, because that was a hard degree. And I don't think I thought about it enough at the time. What I was really getting myself into, but it was really tough. But I'm really glad that I did that, because that allowed me to get to where I am today, which is understanding the way processes work and the way factories are developed and how any process goes from a small lab to a full-on factory. And that's basically what chemical engineers do. They design factories. So I couldn't have done this now if I hadn't done that. So it's always not fun, right? Looking back and seeing the path and now understanding why you were meant to do this. But at the time, I just kind of didn't really think about it and went to study.
Right. That's awesome. So yeah, to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to explore your path. I think just to give you a little background, so our listeners are coming from all over the world. If they are, when they do see this, they'll comment and say good stuff. But a lot of times we're trying to encourage people to move forward with their passions, their dreams, or just how they could help. This is not only informational, but inspirational for what we do. So I think it's awesome that you were like, hey, look, there's a problem here. I see the biggest way to tackle it. And you went straight for the mountain with that one, which is awesome. I mean, you could have tied yourself to a tree or something like that. You probably would have had some sort of effect. No, but I think that's awesome that you went that route. I mean, that sounds like quite a degree. It sounds like you took some time to learn some very intricate things. Is there a lot of political aspects to that? A lot of lobbying that has to do with chemical engineering, or tons of checks and balances that are, I know it's globally, it's very different. We can actually touch on India as well, because we had a guest on from India that's doing some phenomenal work for sustainability there as well. So I'm actually very excited to hear your cultural background being so diverse, because you're pulling from so many different areas. You're able to see things in a much more global scale than I feel like most people are much more pigeonholed onto what it is in America. So, or Europe, or England, or anywhere else in particular. But I guess I'm curious to see how much of it was science and how much of it became much more legal as you've gotten past uni.
To be honest, it was mostly all science, and
that's good.
More maths really than anything else. And my strong suit as a kid was always maths and science. So I was drawing on my strengths, and also problem solving. So the key thing you learn as an engineer is to solve a problem. And it's one of the reasons why this skill set is so versatile. So I was good at putting things together, from being a kid, putting Lego together, and that being one of my favorite pastimes, to then, in a way, juggling pieces and putting factories together is in a way a simplified version of it. So
Right.
yeah, it was mostly science. But unfortunately, I started my career in the oil and gas industry, and I didn't want to, but
Right.
you get picky when you are getting an internship or a graduate job. You just take whatever you can get. And that was what I could get at the time. So I did it. And I learned a lot from it. But it definitely didn't sit right with me, because I knew that it was going against my my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you have to go through those times and kind of change jobs till you find the thing that you really enjoy. You're not going to find it straight away.
Yes. Yeah. So be encouraged, everyone that's listening. Just keep pushing. That's what we keep saying. Marching on, right? There's that pun again. Anyway, that's love it. No, I think that's completely awesome. From what I'm gathering just about your personality and what we're talking about, you're very much, very intelligent, obviously, with the maths and science like that. That's hands down. Like, you have very few words today for sure, and you've said very great points for sure. But I think that a lot of it is, like you're saying, like, arm yourself with the tools that you can to get to where you have to go. And I think that's the best inspiration that anyone can really think about, whether it be traveling to a new place or finding out, the lack of what you don't know and how you can help would be great. I think my question is, for as far as sustainability in that aspect, after seeing some of the nefarious aspects, we actually had someone on that spoke about. Were you in England with the oil and glass? By the way, I meant to ask that. It was England, right? So the Fatbergs, Caleb remembers as well, and we had someone that did a huge research paper and did all this stuff on Fatbergs. So I'm curious on your take on kind of the stuff that was happening around that time, and how much has that changed in England in particular?
It's interesting. I think now that I'm in Berlin, I see things differently in the way I saw things in the UK. I think Germany itself is definitely a lot further forward or thinking ahead in terms of sustainability. So I think things were seen in the UK a bit differently. I remember working in the oil and gas industry and speaking to my colleagues. I mean, I was probably talking to the wrong people when I was saying it, but I was saying, surely we're doing the wrong thing. We shouldn't be working here. Or why don't we try doing some projects related to sustainability? Because we've all got the skill set. And it wasn't necessarily taken in the best way. So it's funny how the mindset has changed so quickly. I think within the last few years, it was not what people were thinking. I'd say about 10 years ago. Yeah,
not at all. I mean, in our, obviously Biden's, one of his biggest voting. I say that in the sense of, like, I think that this is part of how he got voted in, because of all these deliverables that he said he was going to do. So much bated breath for that. But I do think on a global scale, climate change has been much more of a conversation topic, where you're not looked at as some sort of heretic or something that's completely crazy. I hope it's not because the Earth is going through such a much more significant change, but that it's actually become because a lot of people have spoken about it and done some phenomenal work on that front. So what made you make that transition from oil and gas to switch out and kind of move on from there?
So it's funny, when I was doing it at the time, it was definitely not encouraged. But I changed jobs a lot in the beginning of my career. I worked in, I think, at least 6 different places. Okay. And as an engineer, that's not common at all. You would usually stay in your job for at least a good 5 years. But I thought, well, if I'm not happy and I'm not enjoying it, I'm going to move. Life's too short to stay in one place if you're not happy. So I just forced myself to keep moving. We're going from a few oil and gas companies to eventually getting to one that happened to do energy from household waste. And so that was my first time dealing with waste as a resource. And I think I already said to you, I wanted to do solar power and wind power. So of course,
You did, yeah.
That wasn't what I was doing, but I was working in essentially creating biomass and also looking at then, so then changing jobs a few times. I ended up working in a really cool startup in London that would turn in coffee waste into biofuels. So literally collecting coffee from all of the coffee shops in the UK and turning it into solid and liquid fuels, which was really exciting. And as an engineer, I got the chance to help them design and install parts of the factory, which was just amazing. And this was like, exactly what I wanted to do at the time. So long story short, I just kept moving until I found the job I really wanted to do. Wow.
That's awesome. Talk about recycling your energy, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to do that all day. Please forgive my puns. But
I love it. I love it. Keep it up. This is me. I like that.
And to all the viewers out there, appreciate that. For sure, man. I guess I'll take a step back before that. So I think that besides the political aspect of it, I mean, gas and oil are very lucrative businesses, and I'm sure it's lucrative from the chemical engineering aspect as well. So, I mean, that must have been a big step for you to just like not care about the paycheck, or like you said, or even go the same path as everyone else has. I mean, that's a pioneer, not only as a woman, but also like as a chemical engineer that's, in STEM research and all this other stuff. So that's epic. Kudos to you for not being stuck in any particular way and knowing that what you're exactly slow clap, right? For knowing what you wanted to get done and get it accomplished. Some people do get stuck in their own process, in their own processes. And it seems like you're like, hey, look, this is not working. Let's keep it moving. This degree is also really hard. Let's keep it moving. You're just like pushing it forward for sure. And I think that progressive is the way to actually tackle these things. You also mentioned a comment earlier, and I wanted to kind of make that a little bigger, but kind of like this patience for change. It seems like you seem very patient with it. I think a lot of people, as far as when it becomes sustainability, or everyone that's early adapting now within the last 3 years, want change right now, or we want to fix things so recently. You're like, get in line. We've been trying to do this since the 70s. So I do appreciate everyone that's listening in. This may be your first time hearing about this type of stuff. So I definitely ask that you reach out and research some of the projects that she's worked on as well. So after you stepped out of there, you moved to Germany. What year did you move to Germany? Is that recent or?
Yeah, it'll be 3 years in May.
Wow, awesome. I love Germany. I've never been, but my dad's been. He talks such great things about it. I mean, talk about the progressive aspects of it. I mean, the engineers there alone, whether it be just the cars down to the buildings, it's just designed like with utopia in mind. And I think I think that's super awesome. So how did you see the change with the way Germany handled their sustainability or their waste management? It's super clean there too, by the way. Super clean. Yeah.
I think they've always been one step ahead, and that's why it was in a way a bit easier for me, I think, to start a company that was really quite abstract at the beginning, because people here are definitely so much more sustainability minded. But I mean, it's crazy. They've been recycling glass bottles for years, and it's so normal that when you finish a drink and it's in a glass bottle, you go and give it back and you get your money and it's recycled. And it's just a very simple concept, but everyone does it. And this is not done anywhere else I've ever been. And it's a whole system. It's called the FUNT system. So they definitely so much more ahead in terms of thinking about these sorts of things. And that's what I noticed when I moved here. And there's also just a lot of support from the government towards like getting women in startups, towards getting people to start startups around sustainability. So I think for me, Berlin especially is like a land of opportunity, and the city itself is just full of artists and creatives and so much exciting stuff happening all the time. It's just, you feel inspired just to be in a city around so many people who are creating such amazing stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds like what New York wish it was right now.
Yeah.
I might have to take a trip out to Berlin one day.
Oh,
That sounds
you-
awesome. Yeah, that's super great. I think I guess this is a more opinionated question, but how do you think about governments incentivizing the citizens to move forward with green energy? And you mentioned specifically money too.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know if that's why they feel like they want to recycle the glass bottles or if it's a moral thing, but it's a cultural thing. And I wonder if changing the culture of how we recycle, the way it's approached, is the best way to do it. I went out to Japan earlier, like when I was like 16 or so. It's been some time since I've been there, but they're also very big and very progressive in that aspect. I mean, the streets are clean. There's recycling on every street. I mean, into 3 to 4 different categories, and it's just it shows when I came back to New York just how far behind we are. Just like how much we waste on a daily basis. It's drives me insane to really think about. I can't even imagine. But given the pandemic and the things that have happened during 2020, everything had kind of pulled back. And one of our episodes, Caleb remembers, we mentioned how nature kind of took its seat back when the dolphins came
Mhm.
back into Venice and all these other things. So I'm so excited about maybe what can happen now that we've all taken a step back from our carbon footprint. You know, are we going to step back into old habits? Or are we going to change cultural aspects in a significant way? What do you think is the best way to change the culture or the idea behind recycling? You know, as far as, have you ever had this is a very maybe non sequitur question, but have you ever had someone kind of ask you, like, why do you recycle, or anyway, like what made you want to go into this? Like, has anyone been like a naysayer to you at all? Have you ever encountered anyone along those lines?
In regards to textiles specifically, I
Okay.
haven't had people ask why, more do you need to, or is this even a
Right.
problem? And that in itself shocked me, because I feel as though if you understand the problem, then half of my battle is won. But if I have to
Mhm.
explain the problem about fast fashion and textile waste and where it's going in the world, then there's a whole education piece for me to do before I can even explain to you why I'm doing this. So
Mhm.
that's actually kind of what we do with Gladly. We spend a lot of time writing blog posts and sharing information, because I think that is something that everyone should know about. Everyone should know what their textile waste impact is on the environment. And so we do this regularly. But no, I haven't had necessarily people asking why recycling, just not necessarily realizing the problem is as big as it is.
Right. So yeah, let's start about this entrepreneurship. I didn't mean to jump over that so quickly. So how did that start, and like where did that come from? Was it, did you see like a gap, or did you see the funding there, or like what made you do this? We have some entrepreneurs in our viewership and our demographic, and they're always looking for something like, how does she do it? Like, or how is she there right now? Like, you know, so we get these type of questions. So
Yeah.
how did it start?
I started off, I think I kind of knew in the back of my mind actually already when I was in London, having worked closely with a young founder on the coffee waste startup. And he had gone and built a factory, and I just thought it was really incredible that he'd managed to achieve all this. And I thought I would love to do that one day. I would love to have my own startup, but I had no idea how the path was going to pan out and didn't think about it too much. I was here and I wasn't really in a full-time job, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And actually, Berlin is not the best place for a chemical engineer. Germany is interestingly situated in the way that you have certain cities for different kind of careers, and Berlin is not the place for my skill set. So maybe more so now, but not at the time. And weirdly enough, so as I mentioned, my family being very international, I was visiting some family in Tanzania in the end of 2018. And because I'd worked in waste a lot, sounds like so not glamorous, but I had been to lots of sites and seen like household waste, where it goes, food waste. And I've gone to websites seeing people pick through waste. And having seen all of this, the one thing I hadn't seen was textile waste firsthand, but I saw it on the trip to Tanzania. And I think maybe that was the kind of aha moment that, hold on a minute, I've seen loads of waste before, but I haven't seen textile waste. I'm seeing it here. Okay, maybe there's something around this. So I started, when I came back from there, I ended up doing a lot of research and a lot of understanding into what's happening with textile waste and how grim the story is. And I think that's what led me to founding Cloudily, because I'm the kind of person, I wanted to go into business, but I also know myself. I can't do something I don't care about, because I can't just do it for the money, because then I'm not really interested. I have to have that kind of personal purpose. And I was like, this is perfect. I have a passion for sustainability. I love the fashion industry, really interested in it. And this is marrying those two things really well. So if I can figure this out, then this is a very good, like, ideal thing for me to go into. So yeah, that's how it came about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So shout out to that entrepreneurship. Like, that's any keynotes for anyone that wasn't paying attention. Basically, you cannot move with something that you don't have your heart into. It'll end up crumbling. You know, you'll be just as bad as the other waste management companies that she had looked at before, who probably don't care much about the way that they're treating it, and it's probably just a lucrative job. Tell us a little bit about the textile things that you saw right before Tanzania or in Tanzania, because I'm curious. I have no idea anything about that. Yeah,
I mean, that is something I could go on about for a very long time.
For sure.
I'm not going to bore you, but I'll kind of like keep it to the main facts. So essentially, no matter how much we donate our textiles, and we obviously, like, you know, most of us do try to donate textiles to homeless organizations or to charities, or to these like collection containers, eventually 87% of all of it will go to a landfill, where it will sit for over 200 years, because none of our clothes are made from natural biodegradable fibers. They're made from polyester or viscose, and that's plastic. And if it doesn't go to a landfill, it'll go to an incinerator where it's just burned. And this whole thing just didn't make sense. I thought, well, hold on a minute. We grow the cotton, or we produce the polyester, then we turn it into a yarn, we pay people absolutely nothing to make the clothes, and we ship it halfway across the world, sell it, and then eventually it goes to a landfill anyway, and that doesn't make sense. And when you donate your clothes to third world countries, a lot of the time they actually don't want it. They wanted it maybe when it was, you know, good quality stuff, but now we give them the Primark stuff, or the stuff that doesn't even really fit us anymore. And so it's really affecting their local ecosystem. If you are a fashion designer within Tanzania, for example, it's much more harder for you to compete with local, compete with the market prices. And what tends to happen is when it's in a landfill, it kind of gets into this brown mush, and it ends up polluting the local water supplies.
Wow.
And also, if it doesn't even reach the landfill, what happens? It will just be burnt on the side of the road.
Wow.
So it's just that we as developed countries don't necessarily deal with it. We might kind of pass that problem on. And this is something that it's definitely gotten worse over time as we all buy so much more than we used to. And I think this problem is probably more of a problem that stemmed from the late 2000s. But it's a huge problem, and it's one that's going to, if we don't sort this out soon, we'll end up drowning in clothing waste.
What a nightmare. That sounds horrible. Wow, that's really interesting. And you said you noticed this in Tanzania specifically, or in other places as well?
My first-hand experience was there, but having come back here and then worked with different organizations and charities here, I've spoken to so many people who have just said, don't buy fast fashion. And, we work with this local charity here, and their goal is to give to the homeless. Right. And they said that 80% of the donations they get, they cannot donate. And then they have the disparity of most of their donations being from women and children, but they need to, most of the homeless people that they have are men. Yeah. So huge disparities, and a lot of stuff that they don't know what to do with. So they're happy that we partner with them, because we say, don't worry, give us the stuff that you can't give to someone. And that's really where we like to get our textiles from, because I know at that point it's not going to have anywhere to go. So it's better that we take it rather than taking it from maybe earlier down the production line.
I see. So your company is it built a factory? Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do with your textiles once you get it from? Yeah, that's basically my question. Like, what's the process? How does it go?
So
I mean, if you're able to share it, if you don't.
Yeah, sure. So I spend a lot of time figuring out, okay, what's happening in the world at the moment with textile recycling? What are the issues? Where's it going? And I realized that there is a lot of work around fiber to fiber recycling, which is great. But the problem with this is that usually either the yarn that you get at the end is not of good enough quality, and so the brands don't want to buy it, or the fabric is made from blended fabrics, which is very hard to separate. So we essentially developed a multi-stage recycling process where we break it down and then essentially stiffen it so that it ends up becoming like a hard plastic pellet. And that can then be molded into different shapes. And with this, you can produce something solid. So for example, the first things we produced were clothing hangers and other accessories within the fashion world to kind of give something back to them from their waste and to replace the plastic that was being used to make those products. But COVID has been a tough time for us because whilst we've had a lot of fashion industries interested, stores aren't open. So it's not necessarily the best time to have this sort of a startup. So we are pivoting to a direct to consumer eyewear line, which I'm really excited about. And I think that I'm hoping that this changes people's perception on waste. Because I think if you can see that your sunglasses used to be your t-shirt, I think that just changes the way you might see your item of clothing. Hopefully might encourage people to not just throw it away or not wear it.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's super awesome. You're like, oh wow, my glasses used to be a shirt and my shirt used to be pants. These are awesome. Man. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's fascinating, to be honest. Like, yeah, it's like your entire outfit could be something else.
Right.
You know, my sunglasses are my shirt, and my shirt was my shoes, and all this. but it's something that's great though, because it's something that is way overdue, right? It's something that, I mean, this is kind of, I guess, my perception and thought of everything, but this is something that should have been kind of being done in the first place once this technology came into our hands, right? And so something that's really interesting to me about yourself, Alina, is you actually have a current patent pending here, and so that's pretty cool. So if you want to dissect into that a little bit, obviously. We understand what you may or may not be able to say too much, but anything you would like to discuss with that is really fascinating to me.
I think the whole process, it's quite crazy, to be honest, looking back, that this is even, that I have managed to like file the patent and everything. The whole process is a very complicated thing to get your head around, and I am not by any means good at law or any of this, so God for lawyers who can dissect paperwork. There's not that much that I guess I can really say about it at the moment, other than the patent is pending, and we've also been really lucky actually that we got a lot of support from the state of Berlin to be able to fund a lot of this stuff, because again, it's so expensive to get this sort of thing done, and I think that help probably would have been impossible.
That's awesome. That's super. Yeah, it's true. Like, I think that's been the biggest issue for the reason why this hasn't happened a lot sooner. It's expensive. It's incredibly expensive to switch over, but it's one of those things that once we invest in it, it'll actually be cheaper over time. So it's like, it's a catch-22. It's like, do we spend now so that we don't destroy the planet, so there's actually a planet for us to like live on later, or do we just kind of like slowly incorporate these newer ways into it. I mean, I don't know how energy is going to be changed and all this other stuff, but on a much more micro scale, the clothes alone, that's something I know that I have not been doing as well. I don't buy a lot of clothes, so I'm not contributing that bad, but
I love how you put the caveat out there.
yeah, I had to put that out there. Don't come from me. No, I'm joking. I am curious though. How do you plan on directing yourself to direct consumers, or how can we market some stuff for you as well, or like how can anyone be an affiliate to help out with you with your project?
So, well, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate that you that's really kind.
Yeah.
The moment this line is kind of not actually officially live yet, since I'm actually sharing something that's not really known. So I think for everyone to kind of keep an eye on all of our pages, and when we do our soft launch, then you'll see it anyway on our Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Yep, that's the answer right there. Awesome. Yeah, I was waiting on. So check her out there for sure. They're going to be doing some phenomenal stuff. Definitely keep her posted on anything that you want to do. I think it's awesome. So fashion design has been through quite a bit of turmoil even before 2020. All of those fashion shows that got canceled and all the money that's coming through fashion. What do you think about the future of fashion as far as sustainable fashion, or just in general, of some of these larger designers? I looked up a couple of top sustainable designers, and the clothes look great. I don't know why people don't buy more into it. I wonder why the marketing isn't there, and why the budgets are for corporations that are not actually probably taking care of their waste the correct way. So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to how cost effective it is for them. And of course, at the moment, the system is just it just works in a way that you produce and you overproduce and you buy absolute huge bulks of stuff, and people are getting things now because I ordered it, so I should get it today, as opposed to this kind of slow fashion, waiting for your item to be worn and it to be, fully like perfectly fitting and for you to absolutely love it. I think this kind of this passion for your item being perfectly fitting to you and making you feel absolutely amazing isn't there anymore. I think we maybe see, or maybe we treat fashion in a different way. We use it to maybe make ourselves feel better sometimes. If I buy something new, maybe I'm, feel better about this, or maybe I'll, wear a new outfit to this new occasion. And I don't think that is going to fill the void. I think maybe there's something deeper that we need to look into. But that's a whole other discussion.
Right.
It's interesting though to see what's happening within the sustainability and scene within the fashion world. So there's a lot of new research and development around different fabrics, biodegradable stitching, and that's really exciting to see. I think it's also interesting for us to see that shift and for us to kind of firsthand see what's going to happen. And I think us as consumers have a huge part to play in this, because if we demand it, they will deliver. So we just need to, kind of be a lot more conscious of what we're buying. And I think just buy less, but buy something that's really, the best thing you could buy. That one thing that's going to pass the 30-day wear test, which I think is a really good thing to think about. Also, and this is a pet peeve of mine, I think we need to normalize people repeating outfits, because I don't see why we have a different outfit for every occasion. And I definitely get told, oh, didn't you just wear that the other day or something? And yes, I have a washing machine.
Yes. I hear you. Yeah, it's like he just like drops the mic. I have a washing machine. No, that's so true. I don't know where that culture's come from. I don't know what world they live in, where everyone has this. And what it's kind of getting me back to, I think it just reminds me of like probably the first ideas of clothing, probably pre-fashion, or just like sewing clothes together just because you need them, the necessities of clothing, rather than the idea of the aesthetics of fashion. And I think it's just going to get back to that. I remember there was a huge joke that someone told me about a long time ago about just the future of fashion, where everyone's going to be wearing these like monochromatic beige outfits, and everyone's just like futuristically in these onesie suits. And I think there is something to that, other than how fascist that may look, but 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 yeah, I think there is something to that. The fact of this, a lot of this is culture, and I think that's what you've been tackling throughout this entire argument. I mean, you've done phenomenal leaps and bounds that may be a little hard feet or footprints to step behind, as far as the chemical engineering and building your own factory. And I'm sure we can get into a little more just other stuff that you do. But as far as like on the micro level, like you said, change the culture, change the way you think about your own life and how you can affect things on a much micro level. It does have a huge effect, because every time we are consuming or buying into these products, we are supporting in that aspect. So like you said, you overproduce, you buy this, they're going to keep overproducing because they think that there's money in it. As long as you're buying it, they're going to just find a way to throw it away, or whatever it is, but they're going to sell it to you in the process. So if we can kind of create some sort of counterculture in the process to kind of change the way we think about all this, I think that would be the most phenomenal thing that we could do over time. And I think conversations just like this are what are going to change the environment and change the way we think about stuff. So I appreciate you being on the show for sure in this time period. Is that all the projects that you're working on right now, or is there anything else that you want to share with us? Or
well, as if I wasn't busy enough. There is definitely another passion project that I think, having lived now in Germany and seeing how diversity is seen here, I think here it's sort of seen with really more of a gender lens as opposed to an intersectionality lens. And so I had been to a lot of events, and there is a lot of stuff being done for female founders here. It is absolutely incredible. We actually have in Berlin International Women's Day as a bank holiday. So
wow,
that's amazing, and that's a huge.
That is amazing. Yeah.
And I think that's definitely the way forward. But I think there's definitely one piece for me that was personally missing in terms of the intersectionality around race and diversity. So a friend of mine who's Nigerian-American founder, she's also from New York actually, and now based in Berlin as well. We both did the Google Female Founder Program together, and we really enjoyed that, because that was a powerhouse of amazing women coming together and kind of sharing their experiences. And we definitely have supported each other with basically kind of any problem that we've all had within the sustainability scene, in the startup scene. And having achieved this, Deborah and I thought, what if we had this, but for women that was similar to us, So we basically founded Tech in Color as a way to support female founders from diverse backgrounds. So I think the American term is BIPOC. The UK term might be BAME. Here they might say people of color. But yeah, women like us who might not necessarily have connections, first degree, second degree, or even third degree connections to investors, friends and family with a lot of money who can support us with those first few rounds of raising investment. We want to create a safe space and support for these women.
Wow. And how are you doing it? It's not for profit, or how does it operate? Okay.
So we initially started off with, I think one thing that we both learnt the hard way is that in order to get investment as a startup founder, you need to have the connections within the scene of angels and venture capital. And so we realized that the only way you can get those is through having warm introductions, but you're not going to have warm introductions if they're not within your network. So how can we, once we both overcame that, went to lots of events, did a lot of networking, got to meet a lot of people who supported us, we wanted to do the same for them. So we created like warm intros between investors and founders, kind of doing this matchmaking thing and supporting them with that warm introduction. But
that's awesome.
Sorry to interrupt you. It's changing to this year. It's going to be some potentially a program format. So there's lots of stuff going on for Tech in Color this year too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously tech is on the up and up. It's gonna be super like
Hmm.
that's the new wave. Sustainability and obviously tech are gonna be the new things that are becoming in the next 5 to 10 years for sure. And it's gonna have a different face, like you said. It's gonna be probably BIPOC or whatever name that you may come, including our indigenous and immigrants and everyone that have been here. Um, I think that I think what you're mentioning is very cool because a lot of entrepreneurs don't have any idea how to go this route. And I think, just you shedding that light on that and having a
Hmm.
non-for-profit for that is just awesome. We had a couple episodes about what to do during this 2020, how to like make it. And a lot of it were entrepreneurs like, hey, listen, I'm happy the 9 to 5 is stopped so that I can kind of work my way to do what I really want to do. But
Yeah.
they got into these obstacles where it does come from funding, whether it be from the government or like you said, or a Google or whatever, and they have no idea how to position themselves in the right way, or even write some good underwriting for those grants. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're doing. I think that's phenomenal. I definitely have to look into that myself for sure.
Yeah.
Um, is what's a way to reach out to you for that as well? Is that also through the Instagram?
Unfortunately, we don't have Instagram yet. So
Okay.
through our website, Tech in Color, or just reaching out to me. Really, at the moment, it's kind of shifting from more of a grassroots to something a bit bigger than we had actually definitely thought of. But we've just gotten a lot of support and a lot of interest. So really, we're
Yeah.
definitely plugging into something that we both had seen, and I hope it has a very colourful future.
Ah, see,
Good.
I see what you did there. Very
Props to
true.
you.
That's
That's
awesome,
good.
right? Yeah, yeah, that's good. We can
Well
end it
done.
right now. No, I'm joking. That's so awesome. Wow, you're doing such phenomenal things. So, how's Berlin these days? Like, what's it like? What's the city like? We could take a little step back from that and come back to more professional stuff. But on a personal level, everything's been great there. I mean, how's the transition? How's 2021? That's where we are now, right?
Not, you know what? It's so funny. If anyone asks me about Berlin, I'm like this huge biased person who tries to convince everyone I know to move here because I think for me it's been like the land of opportunity. I honestly could not have told you 3 years ago before I moved here that I was going to come here and start a company, and I was absolutely terrified to move here.
Right.
Honestly, like I don't know the language. I don't really know many people. What am I going to do there? I was, and
Mhm.
it was a huge roadblock in my head, and I'm so glad I overcame that. And I think sometimes doing something that's completely out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
you realize, oh, well, if I can do that, then I must be able to do something else that's also really tough. And maybe that's what kind of gave me the courage to start my own company. But Berlin itself is so amazing. The whole vibe of the city, the way people think, how open-minded everyone is. You can just be you. And I didn't feel that way in London. I felt like I had
Mm,
to fit into a sort of mold of London. And here you can be you, entirely you, and you don't need to feel kind of judged or thought about in a different way.
yeah, that's awesome. Definitely sounds like a place that I need to check out for
Yeah,
sure.
you do.
Um, yeah, that's super awesome. So how is your family and how has your family taken all of your successes and stuff? Like, are they in London as well or?
Yeah, so I moved here with my husband,
Okay,
and without him, I could not have done any of this. So I'm so grateful
awesome.
to him because he's been my rock in all of this. He's seen all the ups and downs. My family itself, I think my parents are my biggest support. My parents and my
Yeah.
sister, they're incredible, and it's so sweet. My mum listens to all of my podcasts. She's oh, I heard this podcast. I heard your interview. It was so good.
Right, right.
Of course, you're going to say it's good, Mum. You're not going to tell me I was awful. But it's really sweet. It's so nice. I feel like the one thing I really wanted to do in my life was always make them proud and make them feel like, when they moved to the UK, they did it for the right reasons, and everything that they had to go through, and everything they did to kind of bring me and my sister up was worth it. And I also I always look back on the generations within my family and think, you know, hopefully they struggled for a reason. And if I can take that, you know, to the next level, and hopefully my children one day would take it to another level, then I've done them proud.
Yes. Awesome. What a great segue from February. You know, I know all of Black History Month and all the stuff that you're exactly right. That's exactly what this is about. You know, we're here to, you know, create our generations and continue to change and grow. I think that's super awesome. So yeah, shout out to great rocks and foundations and good marriages and good families. You know, that's the sustainability in and of itself for sure. So I think that this will be adapted in a lot of different ways, but I wanted to give you your accolades as well. Caleb, so do you have all of some accolades to mention? Definitely Forbes. Shout out to that, you know.
I have the list.
You have the list.
Very
right?
long.
It's a long list, guys. Yeah. I wanted to save it for the end so that she could appear very humble, but honestly, she's doing some phenomenal stuff. I'm sorry. She's going for the moon. So we're going to support her along her perfect journey, and her and her husband, of course, on their journey of but yeah, Forbes, right? What else we got, Caleb? Are you still looking for the list?
Yeah, 1 second. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah,
no
the
worries.
Forbes. I know she's a big advocate for STEM. We have. I'm multitasking.
So I didn't mean to put you on the spot. We didn't prepare this. All the viewers.
I mean,
honestly,
we do have her in the room, so she can also, if she wanted to.
I didn't want her to brag, but I mean, what have been your favorite accomplishments? I guess I should have asked it like that for sure. Where you're like, they awarded me and they validated me for some great stuff. Like, you seem a little hard on yourself about some of the best things that you do. So that's why I didn't want to ask you, because I know you're gonna be like, oh, none of those awards mean anything. We still haven't saved the environment yet. For sure.
Like, oh my God, that's awkward.
Don't worry. I'm just
sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Definitely gonna be the Forbes 30 under 30 was absolutely my highlight. I think for me it changed a lot, because I mean, I think it was like this sort of weird external validation that people maybe started to notice what I was doing or take me a bit more seriously.
Right.
And it hadn't actually happened till that point. So weirdly enough, it was kind of like perfect timing that happened, and all of a sudden people were like, oh, okay, maybe what she's doing is quite interesting. Look into that. And so it's weird that the validation has to come from something like this.
Yeah.
But it definitely helped me so much with getting to where I am now.
That's awesome. Awesome. Kudos to you. Kudos to that, man. That's awesome. So yeah, definitely check out all her companies, all the phenomenal things she's done. I don't know, Caleb, do you have anything else to add or any other questions for sure?
I don't think so. I think we're good. Actually, I did have a quick question. How did you come up with the name for your company?
So the name, like, Kleider means clothing in German. Okay. And I think because the company is born, or the idea was thought of here in Germany, I wanted to do something that was related to the German language. And I thought, well, that's quite a cool word, Kleider. And it's not that international. Only if you're from here will you really know what that word means. So that's how the name came about. Not very exciting.
No, that's cool. Actually really neat. I love hearing you know, founding stories and something like that. And I think a lot of us, especially in this generation, our generation of entrepreneurs, we're in a stage where we're constantly creating something, coming up with something, whether it be big or small. And so the name is what is the selling point, right? It's the name, the mission statement. And so even though it may not seem like, oh, it's this cool thing, it is this cool thing, and no matter what, it's your brand and it's what you're creating. And so no, I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think everything that you're doing is fascinating.
Right.
I tend to I'm a listener, so I tend to sit back a little bit during the show, and I tend to just listen, and everything that I've been able to absorb has just been like wow, like this is what I want to do, but like in 50 years from now, you know,
50
like
years, Caleb.
it was just the first number that popped up. Okay, don't give me any crap.
So funny.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day. It's gonna continue to be a long day. So you
I
had
don't need to know.
so you've learned German in the process as well, is what you're saying.
Not really.
That's a hard one.
It's a tough subject, and there's a lot of expats here, a lot of people from the UK, from America, from Australia, etc. And I think we definitely, the startup scene is a bit of a bubble. We all,
I see that.
well, there's a lot of English speaking people within the scene, and it's very normal, even if you have a very mixed team, for everyone to speak English. I understand a lot of German now, and I definitely can speak it, but I just don't think I can communicate in a way that I know that I'm getting my feelings across, or maybe sounding the way I want to. You know, I feel like I probably sound like a child when I speak German, so that's something I need to work on. And I have excuses, so many excuses for why I haven't had the time to work on it, because I've been so busy, but really it's excuses.
Well, there you go. Nothing can stop you, Alina. Nothing can stop you. You know that. But that's awesome. Well, what's a German word for sustainability? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. But all the German guests that were listening, definitely let us know in the comments or show.
It's Nachhaltigkeit.
Say that again.
I'm not gonna try. I actually am German, and I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, Nachhaltigkeit.
Nachhaltigkeit, something like that.
Yeah,
I tried. I'll definitely work on that as well. But all jokes aside, we appreciate you so much for being on the show today. I think we have to get Caleb a sustainable Hawaiian shirt. Caleb has a Hawaiian shirt for pretty much every day, and that's how he's. It's a great collection. So shout out to 34. There you go.
My closet is full of them.
You're definitely contributing to textile waste there, aren't you?
Oh God, that's pretty funny.
Prime example. You can just use me as a prime example. I'm willing to partner with your company though, and I'm willing to be a sponsor, a model for you.
Yeah, if you have any merch coming out, definitely let us know for sure. But yeah, thanks for all the listening and all of that stuff. Do you have any questions for us? Or any misconceptions about what you've done, or, you know?
What made you guys get started?
Oh, that's a good question.
I can answer this one.
Yeah, this is a good Caleb question.
So we are founded from the company Find Your ID NYC, which is a creative marketing agency based out of New York City. And I actually started as an intern for the company, and was tasked with creating a podcast. And before I knew it, I had certain things that I was kind of like guidelines told to create, and from there, boom, here comes the Identity Podcast. This is what is created, and I got introduced to Tarik, and we hit it off. And next thing you know, we're doing weekly shows. Talking about real estate and talking about entrepreneurship and COVID and just everything. And by November into December, we started actually an On Religion series. And from there, we had very consistent statistics and viewers, and we were doing well. But it was the On Religion series that really kind of sold us, and we were able to go over the top. And then have since been able to create a good foundation for the show, and have continued from there. So it kind of just happened, thanks to luck of possibilities for me, and then being able to be introduced to Tarik, and we've actually never met each other in person.
No.
Yeah, it's entirely
we've never seen each other. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's all virtual or like phone calls and everything, which is crazy, but it shows. Sorry, go ahead.
Say that again.
You have good chemistry. I thought you probably like met this person or something.
No, we've never met
Most
before
people
yet.
think we've known each other for years. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
we've only known each other for like 8 months.
August?
Yeah,
Yeah,
since
since
August.
August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
crazy.
mean, you talk to someone weekly every day, it becomes, yeah, it's pretty much
Exactly. I
it's
mean, we
more than a work
text.
relationship.
Exactly. I mean, we text, we podcast, we email,
Yeah,
we just call each other. I mean, we send like memes to each other. I mean,
yeah,
we do it all. So I
right.
guess it's definitely become a good friendship, and I think it's definitely interesting to think of our story and how we've come, and now we're gearing up for months away from being a year of doing the podcast. And it started off as just this little idea that I was doing for my internship to like, oh, now I'm getting paid for this,
Right.
like this is
Accolades
crazy.
online. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Any
and
guest stars that you think, oh, that's an ideal star that we want to have?
Oh, do we have a guest that we want in particular, basically?
Jack
Anyone?
Black.
We said Jack Black. We haven't discussed that.
Sorry.
No, I love Jack Black. I love Jack Black.
I do too.
I think what's funny about that is Caleb and I are very like into meeting the non quote unquote stars of
Yeah.
sorts, if that makes any sense. Like honestly, not I mean, we've had some phenomenal guests on, but like even just having you from Forbes list, like that was the last thing I really wanted to mention because I think to the core of it, there are people that are doing things. And I think that's what we tried to get all across with the Identity podcast. Like the guests that we have met over time are very humble and very much doing like phenomenal things, but most people don't know. So a lot of this has been not only a marketing thing for them, but also they've been able to do a lot more self-reflection. We're able to pull them back from their professionalism and kind of see like, okay, so what really made you start with sustainability? Like some people are so stuck into the phenomenal things that they've been doing that they haven't had anyone actually talk to them in a long time, and on a very core level. So that's been our approach, and our audience definitely loves it. Shout out to them. We have people from Ireland and all over. Hopefully we'll get some people from Berlin as well, shouting out for them as well. Or fingers crossed.
We want you to listen to our show.
So go ahead.
Hopefully.
What'd you say?
And some people from London, hopefully.
And London,
Yes.
yeah, UK for sure. I
We've
think we have
definitely
some guests
gained
from there.
a UK following in the past few months.
For
So
sure, for sure. Yeah, and we have our own little accolades as well. We got shouted out on some websites and some good things, but the core of what we do is to make sure that people see how human this is and how experienced, how human it's just like how I guess if you put it in the perspective the way you described it, I guess it's kind of the way we met each other. We've kind of found a way to kind of expand that out to others because Caleb and I have never met each other. We've had to learn about each other through this like sterile digital world that we've been dealing with. And ironically, we started it in August and we were able to find out like, listen, like this is kind of the world. This is what we're doing right now. And we were able to connect with people that were going through a lot or going through very little. And they've been able to express themselves and help others in the process. Like you don't understand how much people like clamor for this show in the sense of just to hear like you talk about your family, the little notes like that. You don't understand how much I appreciate you even opening up to do that, Alina. So
nice that you asked, because to be honest, I've done a lot of podcasts, but no one ever really goes into that kind of personal aspect of things. It's kind of usually very business. It's really nice to actually open up a bit more. And I think it's also because you guys just make someone on the other end feel comfortable. So definitely shout out to you guys for just kind of
thank you.
that person feel like I can open up, right?
Right.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. We are really grateful for that, and that's something that we always tell our guests beforehand. Like, hey, we this is an open, comfortable space, and you are more than willing to talk about whatever you do. And if you don't want to talk about something, you just let us know, and we won't even mention it. And that's a big thing that we pride ourselves on for this show. And I'm very grateful to hear that you felt that way, because that's something that when creating this podcast, that I personally wanted to stand out was I wanted to be different, because as an avid podcaster, as myself, I have other podcasts, and also as someone who listens to a lot of podcasts, you hear a lot of the nitpicky stuff. It's like, okay, this guest is on just to talk about this, and that's that. We're just going to talk about sustainability and your brand, and that's it, instead of actually talking about the reasons as to why you created all this stuff, and why you created the brand, and why you are in this place now, or maybe why you had to move, or anything like that. And because the Identity podcast is based on your identity, right? And your brand may be a big thing of your identity, but there's more to your identity, right? Identities are simple, but they're so complex at the same point. Sorry, rant. And so the whole purpose of the show is for our guests, for our audience, and for Tarik and myself to discover, understand, and reflect, right? That's our new marketing strategy. And I think it's brilliant, because we are discovering our identities, and we're discovering other identities, and we're discovering identity as a concept, as well as understanding and reflecting on it. And it's a constant cycle. One day I'm discovering, the next I'm understanding, and then I'm reflecting, or maybe it's weeks, whatever. But the podcast itself is here to be a gentle reminder that we are constantly developing. We are constantly creating these identities. And what's amazing about it is that there is no one set definition of identity, right? We all have our own concepts, our own perceptions. So today I'm going to identify as this, but tomorrow I learned something from the previous day I'm going to add to my identity.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Maybe you should do personality tests, or everyone should say their METI letters when they come on the show.
Yeah,
that would be so cool.
I actually was going to do that this morning, because I think it changed. I don't know. I think I changed mine a bit. It was like an ENFJ or something at some point, and I took the test again, and it was completely different. So
really, ENFJA.
Oh, you know what yours is? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
No, so
you do? Yes. It's so cool. I love meeting fellow people that are ENFJ.
I don't know if it's an A at the end or not, but it's definitely ENFJ.
ENFJ, yeah, I know, because it depends. Some tests they'll add like an A or like a P on the end, and it's like assertive or passive and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm very assertive, so it makes sense. It turns out that
with time, because I definitely used to be an INFJ growing up, and over time I've had that slight switch over, but I think I'm very in the middle. So it's interesting actually that you definitely should do it again.
Yes, yes.
Or if it's been a while, because it changes.
Yes. Yeah,
it's cool. That's awesome. A great idea. We'll definitely take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the notes. See, that's why she's got the brains. Awesome,
well,
man.
I think this has been an amazing show. I think we can. Anything else to say? I think we're.
No, I'm so thankful. Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Have met you guys. Thank you so much for having me, and it was really fun.
Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for being on the show, Alina. We greatly appreciate you, and everything that you said, especially at the end there, was I'm very touched. Like that meant a lot to me. Whenever we get something like that, it means a lot. So thank you. It has been an honor to have you on the show, and it's been an honor as always to be able to host this show with my fellow and lovely co-host Tarik. I like to say he's lovely. You've been listening and watching the Identity Podcast. We're very excited to continue our environmental and sustainability series. And don't forget, happy International Women's History Month.
Yes.
So amazing. In March, we are featuring so many guests that do identify as such. And so we're very excited for this. And we have some identity exclusive stuff coming out too. So stay tuned for all the stuff. Lots in store for the month of March to continue. Lots in store for April. Just lots in store, right? Lots in store. Lots of things are happening. As always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, any platform out there. You can follow us at the Identity Podcast. You can check us out there. Don't forget to go ahead and find us on all streaming platforms, and you can listen to us there. So just Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And as always, listen to Brick Media every Tuesday for a feature on Identity Podcast. We have merch now. You can check that out in all of our bios, including our Instagram bio. And if you want to sponsor us, well, you can. Email us at press@findyouridnyc.com, and you can do such. It is always an honor to have guests on, and Alina, you have been one of my favorites. I'm going to be very biased, but one of my favorites. Oh, it's been such a joy. The accomplishments that you have had is amazing, and to hear all about them and more from you, and to discover your identity, as I like to say, was absolutely wonderful. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Well, it is a joy as always to be here. I'm trying to find the banner. Our next show, as I struggle through, our next show is March 17th, featuring Garbage Gang. They're actually based out of California, really cool, and they are all about sustainable practices with picking up garbage and recycling and everything. So I'm very excited. We will have their CEO and founder on this show, so I cannot wait for that. Based out of California. Next week, as always, Wednesdays at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Check us out live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Pretty great stuff. Well, don't forget to also check out our friends every Sunday, our Roots Revival Interfaith featuring Reverend Ivy Rivera every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. They are an amazing group of people over there, and they are really doing neat things with psychics and with numerology and everything, and they're putting and creating it into a church and allowing you to absorb all this energy. It's absolutely amazing. Well, as always, it's a joy. You can follow us at the Identity Podcast. I'm Caleb, one of your co-hosts, along with my fellow co-host Tarik. Thanks, everyone. Stay groovy. We'll catch you next week.
See ya.